I purposely don't talk about fighting games as much anymore because having a take in a fighting game space is a good way to get jumped on the digital streets. But I've gone back to Street Fighter 6. This is out of necessity. I'm a father now and I have free time in 15-minute increments. Sadly, all my favorite games require me to ask for sets in a Discord server and then wait. But Street Fighter 6 has such a large player base that I have never waited even 30 seconds for a match on Ranked. I need my fighting game fix, and thus, here I am. I have 3 thoughts on SF6. I am mostly enjoying myself. This game is not good. It is sometimes extremely boring. If those last 2 points make the first one confusing, I wasn't kidding about needing my fix. Having quick and easy access to a fighting game match allows me to flex that part of my brain. I can quickly put myself in a first to 2 situation and try to adapt to a new opponent in enough time to win the set. I derive great joy from the learning and applying that is intrinsic to fighting games, and SF6 allows me a lightning fast path to doing exactly that. It also keeps me chummy with the current players. I've taken SF6 offline a couple times now so I can better mingle with the new generation. At 35 years old, I am not an elderly man, but for how long I've been playing fighting games competitively, I am absolutely many generations in the past. Beyond the old guard, even. Even if I don't like the game, it feels good to play something current and relevant so I'm not just sticking to the same retirement home wings I'm used to. Okay, but for real though, this game is bad. On release, I thought Street Fighter 6 was another run at Street Fighter 4's mechanics, and maybe a more successful run. You could see the DNA of Drive Impact in Focus Attack, and Drive Rush bore more than a passing resemblance to FADC. However, it quickly became apparent how overwhelming these universal systems, especially Drive Rush, became to the flow of the game. But before I talk more on that, I do want to be a little nicer. When Street Fighter 6 is on, it is on. This is a great roster of characters, and many of them have interesting kits to play around. The joy of fighting games is the possibility space of how the jagged puzzle piece edges of your character lock into, or fail to lock into, your opponent's own notches and grooves. It's a conversation between 2 different parties, each trying to find victory, but doing so with their own means and in service of denying the others. At least, it should be. But then someone gets the hit. Drive Rush is such a dominant force on the game that any poke can be turbocharged to become a large combo extension, frequently with a healthy dose of corner carry to boot. And that's if the poke hits. On block, it turns into an advancing strike that leaves you plus enough for a strike throw 50-50. Shit, this is so powerful that many characters will just raw Drive Rush in neutral. If they get the hit, then hell yeah, and if they don't, it's 50-50 time. It's on the opponent to check them. Fuck it. I wouldn't say this overwhelms the game with explosive offensive pressure, because there are still zoner archetypes, but it definitely leans that way, and even the zoners can use this to their advantage. And if you can believe it, this might be the lesser of the evils, because when you do zoot scoot your Drive Russian ass to the corner, then you can start throw looping. Almost all characters can normal throw you and then time it tightly enough so that on your wake up they can normal throw you again without giving you an opening to jab them out of it. Some characters need to spend Drive Rush to cross the distance in time, but many of them are simply in range to perform it without spending resources. I am going to be a little kind here at first because I think I know what they were attempting to do. There is another mechanic at play called Drive Parry. When you drive parry, you block both high and low at the same time, and if you were to do this at the point of contact, you would get a big, flashy, perfect parry and a free punish. Wow, that sounds crazy, you say. I don't have to worry about high-low mix-ups anymore? What's the downside? The downside is that if your opponent throws you out of this state, you take what is basically a counter-hit damage increase on a throw. So the idea must have been boiling down Street Fighter 6 to a strike-throw game. Huh, there's that term again. Wonder why that showed up. If you think your opponent is going to time an attack meaty, you can perfect parry it. If your opponent knows you are going to do that, they can throw you instead. Shame that doesn't really work then. As I said above, throw loops are timed to be tight enough where the person on wake up can't jab out of it. So the throw looper is already covering these bases. If they jab, you win. If they block, you win. If you win, then you loop to another win. If they jump, you recover in time to anti-air them. You need to either backdash the throw, which barely puts you in a better spot, tech the throw, which at least state changes but leaves you in the corner, drive reversal, which costs resources, do an OD reversal with invincibility on it because Capcom are cowards and won't allow meterless reversals anymore. Yeah, I'm old, I gotta have a shitty old man taken here somewhere. Bring back meterless reversals, you gutless bitches. Or super, which is resource intensive and risky. Being on defense in this game is costly and risk-laden, which should be fine because that's the punishment for being on defense. But the person on offense is holding forward and throw and winning. Or heaven help you, they shimmy and you do a defensive option because now you are super dead. I have enough non-fighting game people in my audience that I didn't want to truncate this experience too much, so if this is at all confusing, I apologize. But now that you know throw loops, let me circle back to why I dislike them. Everyone can do them! That exciting feeling of pairing your character's strengths and weaknesses against your opponent's crumbles once the throws get to looping. Anytime almost any character takes you to the corner, the game is liable to change into throw loop simulator. It doesn't matter the matchup you were playing earlier that round. The experience has now been sanded down to be mostly universal. Frequently, you don't even need the corner. Any halfway decent knockdown can turn into a weighted strike throw mix-up. As I said, a blocked poke into drive rush is going to have a 50-50 strike throw in it. And this isn't a fringe case. Throw loops are easy and effective. They are easy and effective for beginners, and they are easy and effective for high-level pros. It just turns the game off. It kills the experience anytime it happens. It would be fine if this was something reserved for a specific portion of the cast, an archetype that has to work you to the corner and then reap the benefits. Oh wait, they are called grapplers! Hi, I play Lily, and that's my fault. Lily is bad. Not the worst, some may say. No, seemingly God decided to smite the French. She's a retooled version of T-Hawk that on paper is way better than his last iteration could ever be, but in execution feels like purposely designed wrong as a joke. I also think she's a very interesting case study when talking about how drive rush and throw loops being so universal affect the cast at large. I'm gonna say something here that sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but just roll with me. I play Lily because she operates differently from the rest of the cast, but she's bad because the things she sets out to do are done better by the rest of the cast as well. There's a number of things that make Lily different. Her lacking combo structure, her resource gimmick buffing her specials, her crouching medium kick being almost worthless. The list goes on. She's this lumbering hybrid of a big button boy and a grappler. You need to be constantly retooling your approach and giving up pressure so that you can store win stocks and allow her to live up to her best potential. It's a very interesting playstyle. It has a unique flavor that helps bridge the gap on how bad she is. See, one of the biggest pain points is that when Lily lands any version of her command grab, something she is ostensibly game planning around landing, she is punted back to the other side of the screen. The function here is that at this distance, she can, mostly, get a safe win stock while the opponent recovers. There's just one problem. Now she's at the other side of the fucking screen and needs to work her way back into the opponent. She does have a tool that helps her with this. If you have a win stock, then her quite bad and very unsafe Condor Spire becomes a twisting missile that leaves her +1 on block normally and +2 if you use the EX version. When you account for the EX version going through fireballs, this allows her to advance on the opponent, and even in the case where they block the attack, she's plus on block and can find a way to set up a strike throw 50-50. An advancing strike that is plus on block and leads to a strike throw 50-50, you say? Sounds good! Too bad we already discussed that everyone in the cast has access to the same thing via Drive Rush, and most of theirs move fast and use a less intensive resource. Not to mention characters like Ken or Cammy, who also have advancing plus on block specials. The game is just packed with neutral skips. Everyone has the tools to exit from the neutral stage of the game from the very beginning of the round, since you start with full drive bar. And as far as her command grab, if I get 2 normal throws off when doing her throw loop, then I've done as much or more damage as her light and medium command grabs, and I'm still in an advantageous pressure state without needing to re-up spent win stocks. Do you see the problem here? Lily has a unique game plan that is very fun to work around, but it debatably pales when compared to doing the universal choices the rest of the cast have access to, and she does those things worse than many. The biggest problem with Street Fighter 6 is how often you end up in these hard designed states. It doesn't matter if I blocked a poke from M. Bison or Aki or Ed, I'm going to fend off their drive rush 50-50 pressure the exact same way. It doesn't matter if Ryu or Kimberly or Jury have me in the corner. The decision making I have to do when faced with their throw loop is mostly the exact same. The game is being boiled down to these hard designed states where it's still interesting. I'm still making decisions and thinking about my opponent's habits and adapting to their preferred tactics, but I'm doing it the exact same way almost regardless of character. And it's such a bad feeling because you will go from playing against the character in a way that highlights their specific strengths and weaknesses until something happens that immediately sucks the color from the world. It's too interactive to call bad, but it's very flavorless. Again, I'm still having fun, but the more I play, the more the magic fades. It still gives me the fix, but it's starting to become so stale seeing these states show up so universally. And it's not like every match is poke confirm, drive rush, corner combo, carry, throw, loop, win. There's plenty of footage to me losing to regular ass Street Fighter. But it's not alien to see that sequence show up, and for it to feel almost no different when seen across multiple characters. And I need to stress this isn't a dominant strategy found by the community. This is how the game was purposely designed to operate. If this was a mistake, then Capcom could adjust the throw invincibility on Wake Up, make it more like previous Street Fighters, and call it a day. But this is the intention. These hard designed states are indeed that. Designed. This is a game that wants to be played with big conversions up front, large corner carry, and oppressive corner pressure. And Capcom has been trying to adjust the game to be better. They hit the scaling on crouching medium kicks specifically. Newer characters are being built to do things more interesting than just drive rush conversions. They've reworked perfect parry to where you actually have to choose a high or low option to get the flash. This is the change that got me to try the game again. But some things they just can't touch because they are the rebar that holds the game in place. And I must stress, throw loops are not a guarantee in every match, but they show up with enough frequency and they are a standout example of how the game has been built to be played. It's not that these states make the game easy or anything, they just make it boring. I don't know how much more steam I have left for playing this, because the more you see under the hood, the more the spark begins to fade. Also, good God, the music in this game sucks. Legitimately embarrassing for a series as good as this to have a soundtrack so shockingly awful. You never thought you'd see the day where Capcom could strike this low.